pushing hashtag force the vote. What is hashtag force the vote? The Democrat progressives, just a couple of votes. If they withhold them from Nancy Pelosi, she can't become speaker. So we're telling them to demand a hashtag force the vote for Medicare for all. Nancy, if you want their votes to become speaker, you have to agree to bring up Medicare for all for a vote on the floor in the middle of a deadly pandemic. They weren't asking for anything before we came up with this idea, Ron. You know that? People go, well, they just disagree on strategy. You guys didn't have a strategy. They had no strategy. No one was extracting a vote for anything for their vote for Nancy Pelosi as speaker. So this idea that the DSA has a different strategy, they don't have a strategy. This idea that AOC and the squad had a different strategy, there was no strategy. No one was ever going to think about extracting anything for their vote for Nancy Pelosi for speaker until Jimmy Dore show brought it up. And so if they got a problem with this strategy, I want to know what their strategy is. And you know what their strategy is? Nothing. The DSA has no strategy. AOC has no strategy. You know what it does? The Jimmy DSA has strategy. That's right. The Jimmy DSA.
I like that.
I like that. So that's the kind of thing that's crazy making. And so they weren't extracting anything. And AOC engaged Justin Jackson, and she came up with a bunch of bad reasons why she wouldn't do it. And everyone saw through them. So then she went and did a sweetheart interview, a softball interview on The Intercept with Jeremy Scahill, where he didn't know how to ask a follow-up question. And that it didn't stop. She thought that would put out the fire. It didn't. It just that keeps trending and trending. And so finally, she came out with this. And Ryan Grimm ran from The Intercept, which they have a nice sweetheart access deal with AOC and the squad. So here it is. He comes out to run a little interference for her. He says progressives in the House have won a rules change that would allow Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, or other big ticket agenda items to be exempted from PAYGO. This was a necessary step in opening the way for it. Well, so the point of this is to get people off the tail of the squad to do hashtag force the vote. But unwittingly, I think, Ryan, what he's doing here is actually making the case for hashtag force the vote, because now we've got rid of the hurdles that would stop it. And now so we could just go do it. We could do Medicare for all. We could do the Green New Deal. We could do other big ticket items. So what they're trying to do is say, look, that's what they negotiated. They got something for their vote. That's garbage. That actually makes it more reasonable that they do hashtag force the vote. Would you agree with that, Ron?
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. And I think like your interview with Ben, you guys kind of summed up the level of win that it was. And yeah, because it applies to COVID or climate, which I think it's kind of sad, just on a side note, where it's like our government is just like, OK, we'll spend some money if humanity's at stake. I mean, if the climate is going to completely collapse, we'll do something. Or I know this pandemic really sucks. If there's a little bit of something we have to do, we'll do that. There's your exemption. We're like, yeah.
That's exactly. Well, here's what Dave Dayen says. He says, I don't really see Medicare for all impacted by these changes.
Yeah, because you need to make the case that it's connected to COVID.
Yeah. So that's it. So you'd have to make the case that if you did a healthcare thing, it was connected to COVID, right? Okay.
Yeah, which those are easy dots to connect, but
right.
Who knows?
So here's what she came out. So she retweeted Ryan Grimm. This was not coordinated. So she retweeted Ryan Grimm. She says, one of the first votes I ever cast broke with my party over House rules that strangled transformative legislation for working class people and climate. It was honestly terrifying. The first vote that she cast was for Nancy Pelosi as speaker, just so you know. The first vote AOC did in Congress was going against her campaign promise to Glenn Greenwald that she would not vote for leadership. She did vote for leadership. She voted for Nancy Pelosi. That was her first act, her first vote. Now, maybe her second vote, she says, one of my first votes. You only get one first. Hey, where's your third first vote? You only get one. One of my first votes? No, you only get one first. And that was for Nancy Pelosi. So then one of the early votes, not first, early votes, she broke with her party. And it was honestly terrifying. Really? Terrifying? Come on. That, you mean doing the thing we sent you to do? The thing that you couldn't wait to do? The thing you said you wanted to cause a ruckus?
That she gets healthcare
That she gets healthcare for? Now the Congressional Progressive Caucus has pushed these critical rule changes in the House negotiations. I'm grateful for Representative McGovern's leadership. So they're trying to do a head fake. So this is the head fake. Look, this is what we got for our supporting Nancy Pelosi. As we just had Ben Spielberg on, he said that's not nothing. That's basically nothing they got. And it is basically nothing. Ryan Grimm's trying to make it sound like it is something. It isn't. But they've got that straight open door policy with AOC to come on their podcast whenever they want. So that's why they do this. But this is crazy. So this is what they're going to try and pull. So tomorrow, AOC is going to stand up and say Nancy Pelosi's name into a camera to vote for her. That's happening. That's what. And then, so here's the bad part. No, so that's we expected something like this. We expected a bullshit thing like this, and we got it. But here's the part that's in the headline of this video clip. Here's the part that you've been waiting for. She said that, and then she said this. She said, and to be 100% honest, and she put an emoji there, the 100% part, and to be 100% honest. So whenever someone starts off a tweet with, and to be 100% honest, and they make the extra effort to get an emoji in there, you know some bullshit is coming your way. And here it comes. She goes, it was hard during this to be targeted and marred as some sellout enemy of the people over a late tactical disagreement over one floor vote. You mean you couldn't take the heat from a fucking YouTube comedian? This is what the thing that was hard for you? A YouTube comedian yelling in his garage in Pasadena about the thing that you campaigned on? That was what was hard? No, what was hard was that we sniffed you out and we're shining a light on the fact that you're abandoning the people right now. And you're not doing what you can do. And you're lying. You're going against the campaign promise. So, and then she totally diminishes it by calling it over one floor vote. Before she was in Congress, she was screaming we needed a floor vote for Medicare for all. I'll show you those videos in a second. But this was her signature issue, and she demanded a vote while she was campaigning. And now that we got it, she goes, it's just a tactical disagreement over one floor vote. Does anyone not see through this? Ryan Grimm doesn't, but does anyone else not see through this? I mean, besides people at the Intercept. But everybody else does, right? Right? And here it comes. Here comes the big part. She says, also a bummer to see figures excuse comments like F her and F anyone who protects her. That's not tone. That's violence. She's equating speech with violence. Someone saying F off or F her. She's saying that's violence. And let me just say, I get called all kinds of things all the time, every day. They impugn my character. They say I'm taking money from foreign dictators. They say I'm a right winger. They say I'm this. They say they say every unbelievably horrible thing. They put my house in a paper. They tweet that out. What else? What haven't they done to me? And I'm not an elected official. I'm just a YouTube host. I have no power. And I'm going to play the world's smallest violin for you. Someone said F off to a congressperson? And you're going to call that violence? You know what that does? That demeans people who are actually victims of actual violence. I would never call what's been happening to me the last 3 weeks on Twitter violence. Or what they've been printing in the newspaper, or what people have been doing on videos. People have been screaming into cameras saying they want to take me and beat me up in a parking lot. But somehow one of the most powerful people in the world with 11 million Twitter followers and $100,000 speaking fees, somehow she's a victim of me? She's a victim of violence. So this is the Hillary Clinton trope. This is the Bernie bros are mean. Bernie bros said something mean. That's what she's doing. AOC gets called horrible things on a daily basis by people on the right and people who don't like her, just like me. They say racist, sexist things about her, and it doesn't bother her. But being called a sellout by another progressive is bothering her so much that she's complaining about it on Twitter. Right-wingers say the most disgusting things to her all day long, and she beats their ass back on Twitter. But I'm calling her out accurately, and that is causing her real consternation. Do you see what's happening? It's the proper thing to do, and it's working. Maybe being called a sellout is bothering her to the point that she's now complaining about it on Twitter. Maybe, just maybe, that's because she knows hashtag force the vote is the right thing to do. And she has a bit of a guilty conscience. I don't know if it's a guilty conscience, but she's smart enough to know she's being revealed. There's a spotlight on her not doing what she said she was going to do, and she doesn't like it. And she's going to do every underhanded, cheap thing in the world to try to get out of it, including try to intimate that I'm some kind of a maniac doing violence instead of a maniac who's just yelling in his garage. I'm a pissed off constituent who helped you get elected. That's what I am. And if you can't take swear words, well, here's what I say. Translation, I'm voting for Nancy Pelosi again without doing what I repeatedly promised I'd do. Fight for Medicare for all and force the vote. There will never be a better time to do this. I know it's immoral to not leverage power in this historic moment. Too bad Bernie bros are mean. Hashtag force the vote. Well, it started out, AOC, Cori Bush, and Barbara Lee for Congress all did not vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. They didn't say anything, and so we all thought that they were withholding their vote. And it turns out they weren't. Because, boom, and now they all voted for her. So every member of the squad voted for Nancy Pelosi. The only people who didn't vote for Nancy Pelosi were corporate Democrats. Blue dogs and people like that. They were able to withhold their vote from Nancy Pelosi. The squad who ran on withholding their vote from Nancy Pelosi and forcing a floor vote on hashtag on Medicare for all. They ran on this. The time came they could do it. They didn't do it. They were the only ones who didn't do it. Corporate Democrats voted against her. So, Pelosi reelected Speaker despite narrow majority. That is, then there's the ending to your shitty movie. There it is right there. I said shame on the House progressives for not fighting for force to vote and Medicare for all. What is the point of voting for progressives inside the Democratic Party again? They won't fight. They are selling you out and abandoning you. Shame. We are a failed state, as is the progressive movement. Kyle Klinsky's right when he says, I'm sorry, but there's no excuse for the left not to have organized in the last few years to mount a challenge to Nancy Pelosi. You know she's hostile to you and your goals, and she has a 28% approval rating. She's less popular than Trump by far. What the F were you doing this entire time? I'll tell you what they were doing, Kyle. Nothing. They weren't doing anything. It was obvious they weren't doing anything. They weren't doing anything until a pothead comedian decided to bring it up a month before the speakership election. They weren't doing anything. They're still not doing anything. They weren't doing anything. This idea that they were negotiating behind the scenes? Now who's being naive, Kay? Are you kidding me? They negotiated behind the scenes and got nothing. Because if they got something, they would tell you. They told us we got PAYGO, and we all know PAYGO is 100% bullshit. 100%, no matter what anybody else tells you. I know a lot of people, well, that's important because we have to do that's bullshit. Don't listen to those people who tell you PAYGO was important. It's not fucking important. That's a self-imposed rule by Nancy Pelosi, and they could have told her to get rid of that, and that could have been all, they could have did all of it. What is the point of getting rid of PAYGO if you're not going to have a floor vote on Medicare for all? There is no point. There's no point. And guess what? Nancy Pelosi loses the speakership. The Democrats lose the speakership in 2022 because Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi are the face of this party. Two of the most hated politicians in the country. They're going to get wiped out in the House, and PAYGO rules they'll get lost anyway. The Republicans rewrite all the rules. Yes. This is ridiculous. Anybody telling you that PAYGO is a win, that is ridiculous. That is a diversion. We got PAYGO, so this will enable Medicare for all. Are you going to do the Medicare for all? No. Then there's no point. You're bullshitting us. When Ryan Grimm came out, he was running interference for the Squad, just like The Intercept does all the time. That's their role. That's their access journalism. That's what The Intercept does. That's what Ryan Grimm does. And everybody knew immediately that that was ridiculous. Dave Dayen knew it was different. Ridiculous. Justin Jackson ratioed fucking. Come on. Everybody knows that's ridiculous. Anybody who's trying to tell you that means something is not being candid. They have another reason for telling you that. They were doing nothing. Where the F were you doing? They were doing nothing. They were doing Rolling Stone and Vanity Fair cover shots with Nancy Pelosi.
Impeachment.
They were doing impeachment. They were calling Trump an MFer in public. That's what they were doing. They weren't doing anything we asked them to do. They were pushing Russiagate. That's what they've been doing. Ryan Knight says progressives in Congress shouldn't even be voting for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker in the first place, but to vote for her without demanding any concessions shows a complete lack of courage to stand up for the corrupt Democratic establishment. # forced to vote. Some people think they were negotiating behind the scenes, and we just haven't found out what they got yet. Oh, my God.
I've heard that.
Oh, my God. So they got something, but they're keeping it a secret. Does anyone believe this shit? They got something, and it's great, but they're keeping it a secret. What? There's a guy, I'm on my way to admitting patients this afternoon. This is a reminder that many physicians, nurses, and other healthcare workers think Medicare for all is needed now more than ever. Forced to vote, for crying out loud. This physician can't say it enough. So, Cenk, you can tell that guy he doesn't understand how politics works, this doctor. I'm from a town hall around the corner from Mark Pocan's house right now with some other activists from the People's Party and our Wisconsin Revolution speaking out about leveraging progressive power when we actually have it. It's cold, but worth it.
Right on.
That's activism. Politicians like Representative Mark Pocan may see Medicare for all as a campaign slogan to run on and then discard at the first opportunity. But for my friend, it has always been a deeply personal issue, as it should be when 70,000 people die a year from lack of insurance. Read her sign. Her sign says, Representative Mark Pocan, my father died from lack of health care. Will you fight for me? That's what her sign says. Her dad died from lack of health care. Will you fight for her? I'm sorry. Cenk Uygur and the Justice Democrats will tell you now is not the time. That's what the Justice Democrats just told you, and Cenk Uygur. Now is not the time. That's what every one of them did. They told her, now is not the time to fight for your father. They canceled her. They're canceling us. They're being hostile to the movement that got them elected. They are committing violence against the people of America by denying them health care on purpose. They did that on purpose for their own careers. And if you can't look at a camera and say that, then you're not being candid. There's going to be another time when the Squad's going to push for a Medicare for all vote? You know they're not, and I know they're not. Go tell that to this lady. We got a PAYGO exemption. Go tell her. Mm-hmm. Go show her the video of AOC saying we got to cause a ruckus. We got to be willing. We can do this. All it takes is courage. And then show AOC saying we have to uphold the rule of law. She went from MLK to Nixon in 30 days. And you're not going to call that out? The way you put pressure on politicians is to scare them. The only reason this happened is because I scared them. Because I raised my voice and I was screaming outwardly the way everybody who lacks health care has been screaming inwardly. This woman is screaming inwardly the way I've been screaming outwardly, and that's why it got traction. That's how you fucking do a pressure campaign, not by sending them chocolates. We gotta be nice to the people to get them to do what they fucking ran on. Are you out of your fucking mind? That we have to be nicer to them to get them to do what they fucking ran on? You're a cuck if you don't fucking hold their feet to the fire. They ran on it. The DSA, it's in their goddamn fucking manifesto that this is the centerpiece, and they wouldn't get on it. Shame them. That's what fucking works. Do you think this happened because I was fucking nice to them? No, it's because I finally started holding the Justice Democrats to account for their bullshit. That's why this happened, not because I was fucking nice. And that's what's wrong with the left. They're a bunch of fucking mealy-mouthed, spineless pricks who don't do a fucking thing. The moment came and they did nothing. And they sold you out for their careers. I don't care if they don't take corporate money. They are a brand. They are a celebrity fucking brand. They sold you out for their own careers, their own celebrity brand, and their own fucking protection. That's what they did. What is the point of voting for people who don't take corporate money if they fucking go along with the people who do? There's no point. This is a failed experiment. This is a failed experiment. If you don't recognize that the progressive movement is unbelievably fucking decimated, and that they won't even fight a little, and you don't see this as an existential crisis, the squad agrees with us, our policy positions, but when they won't do anything to implement them, it doesn't fucking matter. When Ro Khanna comes on my show and says, I think we should force a vote for Medicare for all, and then a chance comes up to do it and he doesn't do it, it doesn't matter that he says it or agrees with my position, does it? No! In politics, the only thing that matters is the outcome. It doesn't matter how the sausage gets made. The outcome is what matters. I don't care. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And if you're not willing to threaten the Justice Democrats and scare the shit out of them, they're going to do exactly what they just did yesterday. Sell you out for their own celebrity and career, which is what happened. The vast majority of Democratic voters want Medicare for all. Progressive independents want it. Even a majority of Republicans polled, yet the Progressive Caucus squandered their golden opportunity. We still came out to advocate for forced to vote. God bless those people. Dr. McGowan, God bless you. The Socialist Alternative jumped on board. They endorsed our hashtag forced to vote. Socialist Alternative endorsed it. DSA didn't, even though it's in their manifesto. But I guess we shouldn't, we shouldn't shame them. I jump on board their idea and they come and attack me. I jump on board the Justice Democrats' idea and they come and attack me. That's what they're fucking doing. AOC tried to sick her neoliberals on me by saying I was causing violence, when all I was doing was was exactly what AOC told me to do, which was stop using polite language. She said it. Stop using polite language. Until you make people uncomfortable, nothing will happen. She got uncomfortable, didn't she? Yes. Didn't Mark Pocan? Yes, they did. Ro Khanna's so fucking uncomfortable. Every one of his interns wrote him a letter, and today he came out with fucking bullshit about how we could get Medicare for all, which is complete bullshit. That's how uncomfortable he is. They're all scrambling. Not because we were fucking nice, but because they know we're all watching and we're going to hold their feet to the fire now. So hold their feet to the fire. Quit making fucking excuses for them. Unbelievable. I'm not making this up. This is the existential crisis we're living in. And if you don't want to hold the Justice Democrats' feet to the fire, it's probably because you have fucking health care. Socialist Alternative endorses forced to vote. If we can win a floor vote on Medicare for all, we can use that vote as a focal point for building our movement. We can focus the public eye of this life or death demand. We can work within our unions to win support. We can organize our forces to mount public pressure on Congress to concede to this massively popular demand. But we don't have the vote, some say. The corporate Democrats will block us. Then let them block us. AOC and other progressives should not be afraid to expose corporate Democrats in front of millions for what they are. Servants of the status quo and enemies of working people. That's from the Socialist Alternative. That's Shama Sawant. Yeah, she's a member of that. Shama Sawant jumped on board with hashtag forced to vote. Yes. It's weird she didn't take $20 million from
hopes for I blame Jimmy for AOC because I saw AOC on a show and like, this woman's awesome and we need a lot more progressives like this in office. They're going to fight the machine. They're going to push back against the establishment. The main thing we wanted from all these progressives more than anything was to push back against their own establishment party. We wanted AOC, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, who's nothing but a phony anyways, to push back against Nancy Pelosi. Go in there and rage against your own party who's kidnapped the leftist movement in America and fight back. Let's give us a voice. But we never got that. Instead, we got her calling her, we got AOC calling Nancy Pelosi Mama Bear and bending the knee. Well, the other day, Matt Gaetz said enough is enough. And this is something we wanted to see out of the leftist progressives so much. We wanted to see people within their own party, their populist movement, pushing back against the establishment. Here's Matt Gaetz throwing shade at now Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, for not doing what he said he would do. Could you imagine if the progressives did the same? Take a listen. This is Matt Gaetz.
On this very floor in January, the whole world witnessed a historic contest for House Speaker. I rise today to serve notice. Mr. Speaker, you are out of compliance with the agreement that allowed you to assume this role. The path forward for the House of Representatives is to either bring you into immediate total compliance or remove you pursuant to a motion to vacate the chair.
Can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen? Can you imagine AOC on the floor saying that? Speaker Pelosi, you are out of line. You either do such and such or we will remove you from office. We didn't get it.
Violence? No.
We got suckered. But Matt Gaetz holding McCarthy accountable.
We've had no vote on term limits or on balanced budgets as the agreement demanded and required. There's been no full release of the January 6 tapes as you promised. There has been insufficient accountability for the Biden crime family. And instead of cutting spending to raise the debt limit, you relied on budgetary gimmicks and rescissions so that you ultimately ended up serving as the valet to underwrite Biden's debt and advance his spending agenda. Mr. Speaker, you boasted in January that we would use the power of the subpoena and the power of the purse. But here we are 8 months later and we haven't even sent the first subpoena to Hunter Biden. That's how you know that the rushed and, somewhat rattled performance you just saw from the speaker isn't real. At this point, during Democrat control over the House of Representatives, they already brought in Don Jr. 3 times. And we haven't even sent the first subpoena to Hunter Biden. Power of the subpoena and power of the purse. Only thing the 118th Congress is known for at this point is electing Kevin McCarthy speaker and underwriting Biden's debt. And unfortunately, there's only one of those things we can remediate at this time. Power of the purse.
Remediate means you. We're going to remove you, Speaker McCarthy. Do you remember what I think Malcolm X used to call the people who used to stand behind some of the Democrats, even after they got smacked in the face time and time again? Chumps.
Oh.
Called them chumps.
Well,
and there's Democrats out there, lefties in America, that are still standing behind the fraud squad. And you know what you are? Chumps.
okay, here. Can I play crystal ball for a minute?
Yes, you can.
If I had,
I love your hair.
If I had to put on my weird Star Trek like outfit and my boyfriend and think about this, I go, he's just saying he's that, he's just doing a performance to hold the guy. Which, okay, maybe he is. How come Democrats don't do that performance?
Exactly.
And also, I don't care. Let's say this guy is a huge piece of what, and he does any of the things. He just does them. That's really all I care about. I care about what they do, not the things they're saying and does he mean it? You shouldn't even have to go through that. You should go, okay, they said this. What did they do? That should be the whole.
You don't care about the motives.
There shouldn't be a compromise where you got to go.
What's his motive?
Democrats are still 100 times better.
Yeah.
How are they? Well, Minnesota has weed.
Well, this argues against that point that the Democrats are 100 times better. That's why I brought this shit over
this
here.
Is 1 times better than 2 times better than Democrats.
And during his confirmation, it was Matt Gaetz who held it up 17 times. He refused to give in until he got what he wanted. And here's the thing: I always used to say,
that's great.
And here's something that's great too about Donald Trump.
His weird head shake because he did that.
When Donald Trump would go, there's a military-industrial complex over here. People are like, well, he doesn't mean it. He's going to bow down to it. Who cares? Sometimes the rhetoric is important because it's educating the people out there to then go and have a movement to push against it. That's
why the complex took it so seriously.
Yeah.
The military-industrial complex took Trump's nonsense things that he blurted out very seriously, which is why we're where we're at.
Yep. Let's play the rest of this.
Leadership right now is asking us to vote for a continuing resolution. A vote for a continuing resolution is a vote to continue the Green New Deal, a vote to continue inflationary spending, and in the most troubling of fashions, a vote for a continuing resolution is a vote to continue the election interference of Jack Smith. Mr. Speaker, we told you how to use the power of the purse. Individual, single subject spending bills that would allow us to have specific review, programmatic analysis, and that would allow us to zero out the salaries of the bureaucrats who have broken bad, targeted President Trump, or cut sweetheart deals for Hunter Biden. September 30th is rapidly approaching, and you have not put us in a position to succeed. There is no way to pass all the individual appropriations bills now, and it's not like we didn't know when September 30th was going to show up on the calendar. I must be better, you must be better, and this House must be better, for it is the last best hope for tens of millions of Republicans.
Not just Republicans, I think. And don't get me wrong, there's some stuff over here, Kurt, that I'm not going to agree on. They want to cut spending in certain areas where I wouldn't like that, obviously. But here's the thing. He's going forth for his constituents, and he's fighting for them.
I don't make a false idol of these people. And that's the thing. People get disappointed. They're like, oh, they what did they get done? Because historically, a lot of things that got done, like Lincoln, I don't know if you heard his other speeches, he was kind of racist, right? But that slavery, that was, what little they did of that was good at least.
Yeah.
What did they do? That's all I care about.
Yeah, I hear you. The results. And here's the reason why you know that you've been suckered if you still pay attention to the fraud squad and you think that these Democrats are 1,000 times better than Republicans.
Book is coming out.
Look at this. This is from Jamal Bowman, right? Jamal Bowman. Right. Jamal Bowman got nothing going on. Okay, how do we know this? Because if you got nothing going on that you can't speak about, you got to go after and try to smear the guy who is trying to get stuff done. Go after your enemy. Holy cow. All hell is breaking loose on the floor of the House. Matt Gaetz is threatening to launch a mutiny against Kevin McCarthy and oust him from power. I gotta read over here. To the Speaker of the House, this is what you created. You are the worst kind of coward, and you now reap what you sow. He's going after Gaetz.
Boy,
We're going after McCarthy.
Hey, Jabal Moment. That's really street of you to Tell him to keep his name out your mouth too.
Oh my God. I mean, this guy, he's got nothing going on. He cannot talk about anything he's doing. He could just hate on everybody else. He's got nothing going on. Because he's a dude, nothing progressive, because he ain't a progressive.
Look what he's yelling at him about. Like, oh my God, this is the guy that's supposed to be with the radical left, the squad that's going to knock down the house. Out of the Netflix doc I saw about AOC. And he's like, oh my God, you guys are having a revolution in your party. You're not even controlling everyone.
Yeah.
Like, he should have a powdered wig and like a Scarlet Pimpernel while he says this to him.
Yeah. Let's finish up what he has to say here. While the extremists are a small minority, you have cowered before them and allowed them to lie, intimidated and strong-armed their dangerous political ends. Instead of leadership, you have shown nothing but cowardice. You care about nothing except your own power. So he's saying that this is just this is just Matt Gaetz doing it for his own internal needs.
P.S. Do you even want Ukraine to win?
I can't read any more of that crap. I had enough of this guy.
Jabal Moment letter.
Jabal Moment. But you could, I mean, it's mind-boggling to me to see Matt Gaetz doing what we all thought the progressives were going to do. We put AOC in power. We supported her and Ilhan Omar and Cori Bush and Rashida Tlaib because we thought that they were going to stand up to the power within their own party. That's specifically the number one reason. Stand up to Nancy Pelosi. Sorry.
The Netflix doc did promise that in knock down the house.
Knock down the house.
And they showed AOC, and I didn't know at the time that referred exclusively to like suntan lotion standards.
She's doing real work there. Oh, the progressives are doing real work.
Isn't even here. I mean, what country is this?
Jabal Moment. Thumbs down. Next weekend, we're going to tell you about that. All due to this. So this is about Matt Gaetz. More to see. Gaetz rages over McCarthy, Ukraine side deal to pass the stopgap. If you don't know what's been going on, Matt Gaetz and his Freedom Caucus have been shutting things down. They are actually doing what we thought the squad would do. Remember when we elected AOC, when we put her in office? We saw her on this show right here. I went to one of her campaign meetings. We pushed for her. We wanted these young group of progressives to get in there, Misha, and tell Nancy Pelosi, wag their finger at them and say things are going to be different. And do the things that Matt Gaetz is actually doing. Stopping legislation from passing, making the speaker pull his hair out. And mostly the main thing he's pushing back out against is war. The Ukraine war. So you have to think about that right now, right? He also wants line item bills, like with single bills, spending bills. In other words, instead of lumping everything together, for instance, we did a story on if you wanted to fund FEMA, right, and get money into Hawaiians' hands in Maui, that it was rolled into a Ukrainian spending bill. So you had to vote for two things at once, more than one thing. And that's what they constantly do in Washington. Matt Gaetz is trying to get single item bills. In other words, let's have a bill for Ukraine. Let's have a bill for the border. They're big on the border. You know, the conservatives and the populists, right? They think all the problems from the border start at the border. But I mean, they're big on those things. And that's what they're trying to do. And it's the Republicans, not the Democrats, that are doing it. And that's the thing that just blows my mind. The party of war is now the Democrats, because you come isolated Republicans, mostly with a libertarian-minded sense that they want to stop spending money on war. Either way, if we're just compassionate people that don't want to see people dying, or we don't want to spend the money like the libertarian mentality, as long as we're stopping war, we're doing the right thing. But unfortunately, there was a side deal cut between McCarthy and the Democrats because they were so angry that they couldn't defend their whole right to fund the Ukrainian people, right? 500,000 people dead on the battlefield. It's disgusting right now. People are just thrown into the meat grinder, to the front line. They don't want to fight this war anymore. And they were so mad they couldn't do that they, things happened, which we'll talk about. So what Matt Gaetz said is Speaker McCarthy made a side Ukrainian deal with the Democrats and didn't tell House Republicans until after the continuing resolution passed. So they took out the Ukrainian spending from the stopgap to continue to kick the can down the road. For 45 days now, the government is funded, right? But they took the Ukrainian spending out of it. But then he went to the Democrats on the side and they cut a side deal, Update. Following the Senate's passage of the continuing resolution, Representative Matt Gaetz took to Twitter, where he was enraged over a side deal made between Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the Democrats for Ukraine funding, which Gaetz says he didn't tell House Republicans until after the vote. And that's from Zero Hedge right over there. House Dem leadership statement. And this is how we know, because there was an actual statement from the House leaders. When the House returns, we expect Speaker McCarthy to advance a bill to the House floor for an up and down vote that supports Ukraine, consistent with his commitment to making sure that, and watch how they word this, Misha, Vladimir Putin, Russia, and authoritarianism are defeated. We must stand with the Ukrainian people until victory is won. And that was by Jake Sherman, who released the statement from the Democrat leaders. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. The fact is that, and I don't understand how people in the Democratic Party, all the progressives, aren't just standing up and going crazy. Unfortunately, I think a lot of you guys out there, and I know this because I was friends with a lot of progressives back in the days here in California, you don't know a lot about foreign policy, and you let it go. And in fact, some of you, we stand in solidarity with Ukraine. You don't even know what's going on. In 2014, Ukraine no longer was Ukraine. It was a puppet government from the United States. And this whole plan started to pick up momentum to bring us up to just last year. Russia's invading or going in with military actions because you got Nazis on the border and they're slaying ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine. It's disgusting what's going on, and I can't believe a lot of Democrats are sitting back and just taking it. Not to mention that Matt Gaetz is also going to bring the fact that he wants to have single spending bills. In other words, it's an up and down vote on one issue. That's what Matt Gaetz, we have to rely on Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene to help us out. Misha, this is crazy.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So listen to Matt Gaetz this weekend on Jake Tapper, Serious News Guy, and what he has to say. This is just crazy. Listen to, Matt Gaetz is doing things that I wanted Democrats to do. We wanted AOC. We wanted Cori Bush saying, Nancy Pelosi, you play by our rules. Nope, never happened.
Joining me now is the man leading that charge against Speaker McCarthy, Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. So you have been threatening to topple McCarthy, issue a motion to vacate the speakership if he worked with Democrats to fund the government with a clean CR, clean government spending bill, which is exactly what he did on Friday and Saturday. The House gavels back in tomorrow at noon.
Don't you love the way Jake Tapper's sticking up for Speaker McCarthy? This is CNN, right? The Clinton News Network, and he's sticking up for Kevin McCarthy.
Are you going to make a motion to vacate?
Speaker McCarthy made an agreement with House conservatives in January. And since then, he has been in brazen, repeated material breach of that agreement. This agreement that he made with Democrats to really blow past a lot of the spending guardrails we'd set up is a last straw. And then overnight, I learned that Kevin McCarthy had a secret deal with Democrats on Ukraine. So as he was baiting Republicans to vote for a continuing resolution without Ukraine money, saying that we were going to jam the Senate on Ukraine, he then turns around and makes a secret deal. Now, I know you and I probably have different views on U.S. involvement in Ukraine, but however you think about that question, it should be subject to open review, analysis, and not some backroom deal. So I do intend.
So let me just point this out. The fact is that he took it out, right? The Ukrainian spending. So now the Republicans are like, cool, right? But then he goes behind the back and tells the Democrats, and we learned this from the letter, and says, don't worry about it. Just vote for this here, and we'll bring an up and down vote on the floor. He's the speaker. If he didn't want to bring an up and down vote on the floor for Ukrainian spending, it wouldn't happen. So he is openly deceiving a lot of Republicans right now. And at the end of the day, no matter what happens, whether he doesn't get vacated or not, and I heard there's a little coup going against Matt Gaetz where they're going to go to an ethics review, and they're going to try to remove him. But at the end of the day, this guy is the one who has power now. This is a move right here where he has power. And he showed that a little Freedom Caucus, which is not the way, not as big as it once was, but it's a little Freedom Caucus over here, is being able to control a lot of things that he can take a few people, a few allies, and shut stuff down. And that's what you're supposed to do. That's why, all the progressives right now, they can do the same thing. They can say, you're getting nothing passed. We're going to vote down everything until you put Medicare for all on the floor for a vote. Now, some people might not, think that Medicare for all is the crown jewel of crown jewels, right? I think that everybody healthcare is a human right. However, this particular system is a little wacky, and I don't want to put money into a broken system. I think nobody should suffer from going poor from medical bills, of course, as well. But I'd like to redo the whole system. I would like to have a healthcare system, not a sick care system, where we only treat symptoms and whatnot. I want us to be healthy, you know what I'm saying? But that includes the way we grow our food, what we eat, what we take in. So there's a lot more to this whole subject. But if it is the crown jewel of all the progressives, and that's what you want, and I marched in the street with a lot of you guys for Medicare for all, they have the power to do this, to say we want it brought to the floor. But they won't do it. But now Matt Gaetz, who just wants more border security. I don't agree right over there. I think we should handle the problem for what it is, and you might not agree with it either as well. But Ukraine spending, single bill spending, one particular freaking item, not multiple pork jammed into things. Look what he's doing. We got shafted, ladies and gentlemen. I can't believe the progressives are sitting down and taking this stand and stuff. It's like you become the Democrats, the shit libs of tomorrow, the progressives, those who stayed behind. And you know who you are, and I know who you are.
Okay, tomorrow?
I do intend to file a motion to vacate against Speaker McCarthy this week. I think we need to rip off the Band-Aid. I think we need to move on with new leadership that can be trustworthy. Look, the one thing everybody has in common is that nobody trusts Kevin McCarthy. He lied to Biden. He lied to House conservatives. He had appropriators marking to a different number altogether. And the reason we were backed up against the shutdown politics is not a bug of the system. It's a feature. Kevin McCarthy's goal was to make multiple contradictory promises, to delay everything, back us up against shutdown politics, and at the end of the day, blow past the spending guardrails he'd agreed.
So how many Republicans do you think will be with you in your motion to vacate? Because obviously for people at home who don't know, you need 218 votes to get him out of the speakership. You don't have 218 Republican votes. You're going to need Democrats. Let's start with the Republicans.
Really quickly before we get into this is where you come into play, right? Anybody watching the show, I know we have a big mixture crowd out there. I know we have a lot of leftists out here because we're traditionally old school leftists, right? But there's independents. There's people in these districts right now. It's up to you to pick up the phone and pressure your guy. Let your elected official in your area, in your district, know that you want the speaker removed. Pick up the horn. Get on the horn and tell them. Let your elected official know. Pressure him, that elected official, him or her, to say, get rid of the speaker. Because that's what's going to do right now. There's a lot of people scratching their head right now, and they're going, what should I do? How should I vote? Should we keep the speaker? Should we not keep the speaker? Right? Because a lot of people were buying into the whole thing. We're Republicans. We got to be united no matter what. But now it's split. It's fractured. This guy has caused so much fracturing in that Republican Party right now that a lot of Republican House members are scratching their head on what to do. The Democrats, they're pro-war, all of them right now. They want to fund Ukraine up to yin-yang, despite how many people dying, despite so many Ukrainian soldiers surrendering, despite them not gaining any territory, despite them continuing to fund Nazis right now. Like, come on, progressives, where you at? But this guy, he's showing you how it's done. And you ain't got to like Matt Gaetz, but you better respect him right now because he's doing what we wanted the squad to do.
How many Republicans do you have?
Well, enough so that when you host this show next week, if Kevin McCarthy is still the Speaker of the House, he will be serving at the pleasure of the Democrats.
Boom! I gotta hear that again. Wow. Wow.
If Kevin McCarthy is still the Speaker of the House, so it's not enough so that when you host this show next week, if Kevin McCarthy is still the Speaker of the House, he will be serving at the pleasure of the Democrats.
Misha, what do you think about that? I need your opinions here.
Thank God somebody has integrity.
Yeah. And you might not even like this guy. You might not even agree with him. He even says it. We don't agree on these things, but this is what's going on. Our Republican House member, our speaker, is going around cutting deals with Democrats. You know what I'm saying? And I know a lot of people say, well, you can make it bipartisan. No. You're supposed to be loyal to your own base first, right? To get things done. But I mean, it's crazy that the things that they're agreeing on, there's a lot of Republicans that still, as well, I shouldn't leave it all on the Democrats because there's a lot of Republicans there that still want to continue to fund this war no matter what, especially in the Senate. You got Mitch McConnell and the rest of the goons. But I mean, holy cow, is this guy throwing around his weight? And he's showing you how government can work with a very little and cause a very painful situation, a head scratching situation for the majority, right? And that's what's important here. Let's listen to the rest of this.
He will be working for the Democrats. The only way Kevin McCarthy is Speaker of the House at the end of this coming week is if Democrats bail him out. And they probably will. I actually think that when you believe in nothing, as Kevin McCarthy does, everything's negotiable.
Okay, but
and I think he'll try to deal with the Democrats.
Let's be honest here, though, because if you succeed in vacating him, you also will have to make a deal with the Democrats. You also will have to get Democratic votes to kick him out.
Absolutely. I will make no deal with Democrats and concede no terms to them. I actually think Democrats should vote against Speaker McCarthy for free. I don't think I should have to deal with them.
So you're not going to cut any deals with him?
Absolutely not. And I don't think any Republicans that share my view on Speaker McCarthy would cut deals with Democrats. But here's the thing. I'm done owning Kevin McCarthy, right? We made a deal at the end of in January to allow him to assume the speakership, and I'm not owning him anymore because he doesn't tell the truth. And so if Democrats want to own Kevin McCarthy by bailing him out, I can't stop him, but then he'll be their speaker, not mine.
Oh! Ooh! I don't know what that boy was. Ooh, that's gotta hurt from the old freaking Bugs Bunny or the Looney Tune commercials, cartoons. Holy cow. Wow. This is what we wanted. This is what we paid for. This is what we marched for. This is what we got on the street for. This is what some of us knocked on doors for. This is what some of us shared videos of all those members of the squad. And we got nothing. And they're rubbing it in your face now and showing you what the Republicans got, what the populist right got right there. Don't like them. Don't agree with them. Don't care. He's showing you how it's supposed to be done.
Let's talk about what's just happened this last week, the government shutdown, because obviously, as you know, you've made a lot of enemies this last week. A lot of people, I'm talking about House Republicans. I'm not talking about Democrats or the media. I'm talking about House Republicans. They're pretty angry. Take a listen.
Unfortunately, a handful of people, and in particular a party of one, Matt Gaetz, have chosen to put his own agenda, his own personal agenda, above all else. He's not a conservative Republican. He's a charlatan. They killed the most conservative position we could take.
There he is. I Patch McCain, right? There he is. Why don't you make a call? Make a call. If he's your congressman, make a phone call. Let him know your funding of a war that's already been lost, a proxy war in which we changed the government instead of spending money at home to take care of the homeless people, the people out of work, our roads, everything, our infrastructure. Hey, if you're a Republican, you want to say, not even taking care of our border. There you go. I Patch McCain. Go get him. That's the problem. These guys are feeling no pressure. They need to feel pressure from the constituents. And if I got to work with Republicans to end a goddamn war, I'll work with Republicans to end a goddamn war. It's disgusting what's going on in Ukraine. 500,000 dead. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, because I hate this talk. We didn't lose one American life. A Ukrainian life is just as precious as an American life. Bottom line.
And then called themselves the real conservatives, which is like, make that make sense.
Now, the conservative Wall Street Journal editorial board wrote an editorial about what you're doing called a government shutdown for dummies. And among the criticisms, they said, quote, the real goal of the malcontent seems to be to topple Mr. McCarthy for personal spite. It's also pointlessly stupid with failure foreordained. Their constituents wanted conservative policies, but the Gaetz Republicans are playing personal games. What do you say to these conservatives, these Republicans?
Before he answers that, ending a war is not playing personal games, right? Getting bills with just one particular item instead of a whole bunch of pork thrown in there is not playing personal games, right? This is what the speaker agreed to. This is what progressives should be fighting for. Everything's turned upside down, so it's not. But it's not about playing personal games. And you can see what the Wall Street Journal is doing. They're all in for the establishment. They're all in for war. They're all in for the war machine, baby.
All right. Well, I think what's really stupid is sitting atop a $33 trillion debt, facing $2.2 trillion annual deficits while the world is de-dollarizing. Just in August, you saw the BRICS system that is moving away from the dollar add 6 new countries, including Gulf monarchies, including even some of the G20 economies in our own hemisphere.
People at home, that's a BRIC is Brazil, Russia, India, China. Go ahead.
Yeah, and they are moving away from the dollar. You're seeing the African Union move away from the dollar. U.S. News just last month said that de-dollarization was the economic trend of our day. And so
this is important too as well. And nobody's speaking about it, right? Here's Gaetz speaking about, why isn't everybody speaking about it? If we are de-dollarized, in other words, the fact that we are the main currency throughout the world, we are the global currency, that's what's keeping value in our dollar. If that doesn't happen anymore, if that ceases to exist, then we're screwed. Your money, your shkadol won't be worth anything. And he's the only one who's kind of mentioning it right now. I mean, he has all the facts on his side. He's carrying a weaponry of facts that he's just launching out there at all these idiots, these establishment idiots. These are facts.
some people try to make policy disagreements personal because their own policy failures are so personally embarrassing. But this isn't personal, Jake.
Yeah.
This is about spending. This is about the deal Kevin McCarthy made. If Kevin McCarthy didn't want to keep the deal to return to pre-COVID spending, if he didn't want to keep the deal to have single subject spending bills, not vote for government spending all up or down at once, then he shouldn't have made that deal. So this is about keeping Kevin McCarthy to his word. It's not about any personal animus or
Now, I know there's always that case that's been made. Oh, we don't have to stop the spending. We create our own currency. We print it. We can continue the spending. But what are we spending the spending on? What are we spending the money on? How much money are we spending in the war? How much money are we giving to Ukraine? He wants to return to pre-COVID spending. Remember when the government just printed out money printer go brrr to pay for all these other things where Big Pharma made money hand over fist? Well, that money just transferred right over to the war machine. And they want to keep spending that money. They're not spending it on you. They're spending it. That's a point where I really wish that Matt Gaetz would hammer home. The spending is going to the top 1%, the majority of it. You're getting nothing and they're getting everything. BlackRock and Vanguard are buying up everything and you can't even hold a house. Our generation can't have UGATs. Nothing. Because all the money's been given up to the top and they're buying everything out from underneath us. BlackRock and Vanguard own everything. They even own, from what we learned, they own the grain in Ukraine. House Democrats, House Committee for Appropriations, right? Republicans, not so clean, continuing resolution. And it says right over here, I gotta turn and look because it's so small on my screen. It's all about portrays our commitments to the Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, do our lawmakers work for us? Or do they work for the war machine? They're showing loyalty. They're pledging their loyalty to another country. Has it always been that bad, Misha? I mean, this is just getting to a whole nother level when they could put the needs, which they say of the Ukrainians, and it really is just the war machine, over us, its own citizens. Pick up the damn phone, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not trying to wag my finger here, but let's do this. We got to do everything we can to end this war. Betrays our commitments to Ukraine. Yesterday, Republicans voted to defund our support for allies in the Middle East like Israel. Their target is Ukraine, despite the fact that as the majority's will demonstrated several times this week to provide support for Ukraine's self-defense. They gotta sit there too as well. The Democrats gotta stand for Israel. Gotta blow sunshine up somebody's, you know what. The bipartisan Senate continuing resolution fights against Russian tyranny and aggression and provides support for Ukraine at a pivotal moment. Still lying to you, acting like this war is winnable. This war's been over for quite some time and they don't give a damn. The Democrats don't give a damn how many young Ukrainians die. They don't give a damn. And half the Republicans, more than half, they don't care either. And it says over here, Department of Defense for support for Ukraine provides $4.5 billion in emergency funding to the DoD to respond to the situation in Ukraine and to refill U.S. military inventory. Within the amount, $3 million is for the DoD Office of the Inspector General. Ukraine parolee benefits extends authorization for the same refugee benefits provided to Ukrainians granted parole through the fiscal year of 2023 to Ukrainians granted parole during the continuing resolution. At least they're going to do something over there for the refugees, and there's going to be a shit ton of them. Economic Support Fund provides $1.65 billion in emergency funding for assistance for Ukraine. Within that amount, $1 million is for the Office of Inspector General of the State Department and $1 million for the Office of the Inspector General of the United States Agency for International Development. So all the money going to who? Ukraine. That's the Democrats. Now we got this. We got the Commander-in-Chief, Joe Zombie Biden there, who's also disappointed that Ukraine didn't get their money. Biden says there's not much time to keep aid flowing to Ukraine and Congress must stop the games. War, 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 war. Like his friend Dianne Feinstein in the Senate made it happen so we can go to Iraq in the Senate. They were the Democrats that brought it on home, baby. Washington, the AP News, President Joe Biden said Sunday that American aid to Ukraine will keep flowing for now as he sought to reassure allies of continued U.S. financial support of the war effort. But time is running out, the president said in a warning to Congress, shaking your fingers if you don't give me money for war. We cannot, under any circumstances, allow America's support for Ukraine to be interrupted. This is your president, ladies and gentlemen, standing and representing another country. Is Ukraine the 51st state of the United States? Did I miss something here? Biden said in remarks from the Roosevelt Room after Congress averted a government shutdown by passing a short-term funding package late Saturday that dropped assistance for Ukraine in the battle against Russia. Very deceiving by House Speaker McCarthy, where he says we're going to drop the spending to Ukraine, but then goes and whispers, but don't worry, when we come back, we'll get a vote for it. Don't worry, we'll get that money to Ukraine. We'll get your donors the money they want. Not the American citizens, the donors who want the war. We have time, but not much time. And there's an overwhelming sense of urgency, he said. Nothing that the funding bill lasts only until mid-November, which in other words, they just kicked the can down the road for 45 days. It's a stopgap. Biden urged Congress to negotiate an aid package as soon as possible. Please, guys, get me my money. Negotiate something. And the fact is, these donkeys are all in. McCarthy's not stupid. He knows that this war has growing unpopularity within the public. That's why Zelensky this time, Misha, did not get a chance to speak at Congress like he did when Pelosi was running the House. When the Democrats had control, they were fawning over Zelensky and his little fake green fatigues over there. The cokehead actor, the idiot, never fought a day in his life. And here's the cuck of all cucks. Wow. Wow. You know, I know people go, you know, Pasta, you give Bernie a hard time. If it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have your show. You would have never met Fee. You wouldn't be on Jimmy and yada, 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 yada. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I don't care. This is disgusting. This is who Bernie Sanders is. It was like he was the compromise candidate at one point. People didn't realize that. I look forward to seeing Congress provide in the very near future financial support for Ukraine, which is valiantly struggling against Russian aggression. And Vladimir Putin is an authoritarian. Help me send money to kill young kids. Old people too, because in Ukraine, they send 45, 50-year-olds to the line to die. But we haven't lost one American. Psychopaths. We are run by a bunch of psychopaths. But there's more. In the very next section, there was a delay. Now, we don't know what the delay was about. They said maybe they wanted more time to read the bill, the resolution. Some people were just said the Democrats were upset because they couldn't fund Nazis. So somebody brought in a little stall tactic. But Misha, what do you think really quick while we put a bow on this section about what Matt Gaetz has just done? And, you know, at one point, what we thought the Democrats were going to do, at least the progressives.
Like I said, I'm grateful for Matt Gaetz. But as Biden pointed out, you know, it is urgent. You know, the Ukrainian, they've got to go into their spring, summer, fall, winter offensive. What the formal, say Hawkins, what the, you know.
I feel like there's a little skid over there. Spring,
Right.
summer,
yeah, there's something
winter,
there.
fall, yeah, aggression. And you know, listen, they can do it in any of those 4 seasons. It's not going to help. They're not going to push through the Russian lines. I mean, you're talking about a country that's like 10, 20 times bigger at this point. Mm-hmm. You know, if anybody knew anything from the get-go, they knew that Ukraine didn't have a chance. This is all about depleting the resources of the Russian military, making them spend more money at the cost of Ukrainian lives. At the cost of Ukrainian lives. And that's the whole thing. These lawmakers have been going around. It's only 3.5. It's only 4% of our war budget. Well, that tells me that your war budget's way too high because we're going to be around 150 billion or so. It only takes about 5 billion to replace all the houses in Lahaina, and they're getting nothing. In fact, they're getting even more screwed. We'll get into that. But I mean, Ukrainian lives. Since when is a Ukrainian life not as precious as an American life?
She waged this fight against one of the most unpopular politicians in the modern era while fighting for a popular policy position like Medicare for all. She would be the most popular politician in the country by far. Instead, she voted for Pelosi. Now she has a favorable rating as low as Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton. I didn't know that. I didn't know it was that bad. So they did it. And they did it over real reform stuff. The effort was launched on Monday. This is the first time. I didn't know that was the first time they'd ever done that. And the people who are upset are the people who, even like quote unquote Democratic, not politicians, but like journalists, mm-hmm. right? People at the HuffPo and stuff. They're saying this is outrageous and it's because you can't go against power.
Yeah, right.
You can't go against the establishment. So he introduced a privileged resolution to vacate the speakership after accusing McCarthy of cutting a secret deal with President Biden. So what they did was they got the Ukraine aid. He's serious about this Ukraine aid, this Matt Gaetz. So they got him to take the Ukraine aid out of the deal that would keep the government open, but McCarthy went behind their backs.
Well, wait, Jimmy, I don't know if I believe that. There's no proof of that. We can't just jump on that as if it were Russell Brand wild allegations from a
decade ago.
Yeah, from a decade through the British media. This is something we have to wait and not jump too much on.
Unfortunately, they sent a letter out, leadership telling the people that don't worry, McCarthy, when we get back to session, is going to put it up for an up and down vote, which was very,
well, now you're putting it in Putin's hands.
Well, when he took it out, everybody assumed it won't go on the floor because only the speaker can take it to the floor. So if he takes it out, it's never going to get on the floor. But then he went behind the back and said, don't worry, we'll put it up for an up and down vote and you'll get your Ukraine spending money because all the Democrats want to fund this war.
But this is just about how much the military industrial complex has a stranglehold on the Democrats. And that's all this is. This is just a money laundering operation, the Ukraine war. This isn't, look at my speech at the UN. You know what I'm talking. Go ahead.
This is like, okay, remember when it turned out FTX was doing backdoor deals with Alameda Research and they're supposed to be separate?
Yes. Yeah.
I get a strong feeling that America and Ukraine have some similar relationship.
Like, Putin's a madman.
Oh, is this all one big company and I thought I lived in a nation?
So what's funny is that there are people out anyway. So the final vote was 216 to 210 with 8 Republicans and every Democrat voting to remove McCarthy. And then, so here's Matt Gaetz says, Speaker McCarthy never intended to move on to single subject appropriation bills until we forced him to. So so I was going through marijuana withdrawal, still am, head foggy, on vacation, wasn't paying attention. This guy's serious about this. So Craig, what this is you know how they'll put in a bill here, Ukraine funding along with the border, along with the military, whatever school funding. They'll put all this kind of shit together, so you can't vote against it. And he's saying, no, you're going to vote on single things. This is like a real reform.
Yeah. But what about the political norms, Jimmy? Yeah. Normally, we wouldn't do that. Normally, we would do something corrupt.
And so that's a real reform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I get a Kleenex?
Yeah. Think how crazy that is. Like, he's the crazy guy of that because he did the thing that most people want in the country where, the democracy that's at stake this election.
Most leftists want that. They don't want a bill that goes to the floor where you're lumping in Ukraine spending and border. Because then it provides cover for the politician.
Or Israel funding and school lunches, right?
That's a good one.
So thank you. And
he's not representing the people he's supposed to represent there. That's what's crazy about him.
so the one guy who has the balls to do this in Congress is Matt Gaetz, and of course they tried to smear him as a pedophile because the donor class doesn't have a stranglehold on him. He doesn't take PAC money.
I haven't looked at his funding, but I know that on the floor they accused him of using this for fundraising, and he said, "I'll gladly take 20."
Well, I'm going to play that.
Yeah.
I'll play that. Washington must change. We must put the House of Representatives on a better course. Speaker McCarthy has failed to take a stand where it matters. So if he won't, I will. So here, now this is the speech I always wanted to hear a lefty make.
Yeah.
Here it is.
To be clear, I tried to get one of the 3 podiums on the Republican side, and y'all wouldn't let me have them, so you sent me over here. But you know what? I'll make this argument at any desk in this building, from the well, from the chair. I'll make it on every street corner in this country that Washington must change. We have to break the cycle. We have to break the fever. And I would hope, truly, that the reforms that we are fighting for are reforms that would last and be embraced and that would democratize power in this institution beyond the privileged few who back us up against shutdown politics and Christmases and deadlines in order to achieve their objectives. Mr. Speaker, high inflation is on the verge of bankrupting American families. Our economy is breaking in half. A typical American family can't afford to buy a house in 99% of U.S. counties. Inflation is stealing more than $700 a month from working Americans, nearly $9,000 a year. Kevin McCarthy is the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and he has failed to take a stand where it matters. So if he won't, I will. I make no apologies for defending the right of every hardworking American to afford a decent life for themselves and their families, and we have a greater opportunity to do that and to build coalitions under new leadership. We have to rip off the Band-Aid. We have to get back on a better course. And Mr. Speaker, I don't know how this vote's going to go. Usually when a vote comes to this floor, it's pretty predetermined. And this one, I'm not so sure. But I am sure that we've made the right argument. That this place deserves single subject spending bills, that we should have 72 hours to read a bill, that something that spends more than $100 million shouldn't be put on the suspension agenda such that we can't amend it, and there shouldn't be secret side deals made on a continuing resolution to lump Ukraine in with border security. That is not right for Ukraine or border security because it fails to give either of those issues the dignity that they would require. But we can return that dignity to this House. We can get back on a better path. We can have single subject appropriations bills. We can set a budget top line. We haven't had a budget in this place since I was in high school. So let's get a budget. Let's get our act together. Let's get on with it. Let's vacate the chair and let's get a better speaker. I yield back.
And so,
Whoa, what was that ruckus?
Now you know. That's a ruckus. That's a real ruckus. And now you know why they slandered him as a pedophile? Because the donor class can't control him. And so remember all those crazy stories that they were writing that he's a pedophile? Oh God, he's going to be a pedophile.
I haven't heard anything about it for quite some time.
Haven't heard anything.
Well, I bet they'll be making a comeback now.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm sure that's what they said to Jamal Bowman and Bernie Sanders. You want us to do what we're doing to Matt Gaetz to you?
Okay, now in fairness,
You better go along with the Ukraine war. You better slander healthcare activists. You better call healthcare candy. You better vote for the CARES Act. You better participate in the largest open transfer of wealth in human history. Or we're going to do to you what we're doing to Matt Gaetz right now. We're going to say there's a pedophile. And if that doesn't work, we'll do what we did to Trump. We'll say he's a Russian agent. And if that doesn't work, we'll do what we did to Tulsi Gabbard. And we'll say she's an Assadist. She's a traitor to our country. Even if she's serving as an officer in our military in these stupid wars. And so they can't control him, and that's why they did that to him. Why do you think the FBI was trying to pin a pedophile tag on him? What do you think they're doing to Russell Brand? Do you not see the game now? So whoever the donor class can't control and hate and they're calling him crazy now. They're calling him a terrorist.
this is a disgrace. I saw Newt Gingrich say he's a traitor to the Republican Party. You know, the thing that I'm mad about.
Yeah. So here, imagine if they had the balls. Imagine if a Democrat had the balls to say this and actually follow through on it.
And when it comes to how those raise money, I take no lecture on asking patriotic Americans to weigh in and contribute to this fight from those who would grovel and bend knee for the lobbyists and special interests who own our leadership, who have, boo all you want, who have hollowed out this town and have guarded against the...
You hear the marked difference between if you were in a crowd of people and said that?
Yes.
And what you hear at the top?
A crowd of people. So if I say that at one of my shows, the whole place stands up and cheers. Yeah. He says that in front of their elected representatives and they boo him.
Yeah. His own party. That's his own party booing and he doesn't give a damn.
This is like watching, to me, Matt Gaetz right now, for me, it's like watching a professional wrestling villain go to the microphone and all of a sudden turn into the good guy.
He's a rock.
You're like, what? You're for the people?
He's doing a great wrestling monologue. And if you actually do the thing like boot McCarthy out, it's really weird how happy I am about that and how much you would think it would align with every Democrat whose worst fear was a Kevin McCarthy speakership.
Yeah.
That was a primordial, primordial fear.
And he doesn't want to fund Nazis.
Boo! Boo! Now, can I just say in fairness to Jamal Bowman, I believe he did try to force the vote a couple times, but it turned out to be the fire alarm.
So the conservatives have been considered dishonest thieves for generations, and it looks like Matt Gaetz has absconded with the morality that was supposed to be on the left.
Look at this panel of angry monopoly men.
No, he's actually on the Democrat side right now because the Republicans wouldn't give him one
of the podiums.
A podium.
Yeah.
So those are all Democrats behind him, right?
What's the Democrat attack? I guess like this doesn't look classy at all.
Well, what they're doing, they're trying to spinning it like, look, they don't have their act together, and they're just going to try to campaign off the fact that they're just out of whack. They can't get their act together. They can't get on the same page, and they're slowing down government. They're shutting it down because of this nonsense.
No,
That's how they're trying to spin it.
But it is
the thing we all want. I want us all to be on the same page.
we all want people. That's what the Democrats have turned into. That's what they're bragging about. AOC said a couple days ago that the Democratic Party's running like a well-oiled machine.
Oh, no shit.
They're all in unison. Yeah. They're all in lockstep. That's called being in lockstep. She's not there bringing what a ruckus. So listen to what he has to say.
Listen to that machine purr. No clanking.
This is, and first of all, it made me, I don't want to say bitter, but it made me cynical because I saw all these people just blatant, the whole establishment lies. So wait till if you think pedophile wasn't bad, wait till you see what's coming next at this guy from the corporate media, where they're calling him a terrorist. Yeah. They're saying that he's over.
There's going to be like terrorism charges brought against him.
Yeah, I bet you, because if you could charge him with terrorism, you don't have to. You could just suspend his civil rights. You don't have to give him a trial because when Barack Obama signed the ND 1021, and now they just indefinite detention. I bet he's going to get indefinite detention for this.
They've already been talking about the ethics committee coming back after him, possibly bringing up some charges. So
yes,
they've already kind of hinted at that. The ethics committee.
Yeah.
What about the norms committee?
Yeah. So, and of course, everybody's going to spin this from MSNBC, CNN, Fox News. I bet you even to the Young Turks and all those people. That somehow they're not. First of all, I saw. There's so much I want to say about it. But the weird thing is that the Democrats could have tried to actually extract something from McCarthy.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they do that? I don't think McCarthy was willing to make a deal.
Well, he probably wasn't willing to make a deal because of what Matt Gaetz said on Jake Tapper when he goes, well, no, if McCarthy is going to cut a side deal, and if the Democrats are going to, make a deal with him, then the Democrats will own him because I'm done owning him. So he put him in a position where McCarthy probably couldn't go to the Democrats because Matt Gaetz called his bullshit on Jake Tapper.
So here's some. I mean, this is Matt Gaetz is inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
And this is amazing. This is exactly what we thought that AOC would do. This is exactly what we thought Cori Bush would do, Jamal Bowman would do. This is exactly what we thought they would all do. And of course, they're trying to pretend like this is bad.
Yeah.
They're trying to pretend like
Jimmy, the optics. Without the optics of it.
So they're going to get that Ukraine money come hell or high water. And why do people give a shit about Kevin McCarthy? Politics attracts mediocre people to begin with, but the most mediocre of people.
I thought he was a living nightmare that Kevin could never be the speaker, and that was our worst thing. I don't understand what's happening. I remember the fear of Kevin McCarthy because people brought up like, you're an idiot if you think.
Yes,
which it was a lie anyways, because he was never going to be a speaker when the Democrats had power. When the Democrats had the majority.
Kevin McCarthy wasn't the devil.
Yeah. He couldn't even keep speakership when the Republicans had it. So I don't know what this is, but Matt Gaetz is on fire. Let's play another one.
It is astonishing to hear any colleague give Speaker McCarthy credit for moving on to the single subject appropriations bills. As you heard my colleague Mr. Biggs say, that was never the plan from Speaker McCarthy.
Mr. Biggs from Sex and the City?
Is that what he said?
Is that Mr. Did he say Mr. Big, my friend Mr. Big?
I think he was talking about another convention.
Oh, okay. That would be exciting.
My colleague Mr. Biggs say, that was never the plan from Speaker McCarthy. The week before we moved on to those single subject appropriations bills, the plan was another CR. He pitched a CR. They tried to get us to vote for a CR, and only when a brave few said, we are done governing by continuing resolution. We are here to eulogize the era of continuing resolution. We will not do it. We will not pass it. These bills can go. The spending may rise and fall as the years pass, but the notion that we're going to lump in the Department of Education and the Department of Labor with our military and our troops and our border patrol is fundamentally unserious, and I would suggest chaotic. We cannot do that. It was only because we forced that to happen. And by the way, if we continue with Speaker McCarthy, the appropriations process will go right back to what he wanted it to go back to. Just a sideshow. Just a puppet show. Just something to keep the hamsters on the hamster wheel as they continue to back people up against a calendar, centralize power with the lobbyists and special interests that move all kind of money through the leadership. And then that's how they get their way. And that's why the American people have been getting screwed decade after decade. And I'm not going to tolerate it anymore without a fight. I reserve.
Wow.
It is astonishing.
Isn't that amazing, Kurt? Wow. That's kind of mind-blowing. And what's even more mind-blowing is to watch how the establishment, media, and the other politicians call this the bad thing. He's cuckoo. He's crazy. This is what everybody should want. This is certainly what the people of America want. And they boo it. Here's what Nico House is not a single Democrat would ever hold Pelosi accountable in a way that Gaetz did to McCarthy. Every self-proclaimed progressive in Congress should be embarrassed, of course. Remember, and then there were people like this, even they'd slip. This is when, remember back then, he was saying that McCarthy couldn't
Uyghur?
Yes.
So what you do is you force, when you vote no,
What do you do?
Still
He
the
slipped.
classic.
That's the classic. He slipped when he was trying.
Oh, this is
So he was trying to get them. So when you when you vote no.
Oh, do you think you can go?
That forces them back to the negotiating.
So I just said day after day we are shown that force to vote was the correct strategy, and AOC and Fraud Squad turned on their base and sided with the establishment. Imagine the energy, enthusiasm, and power to make demands that the left could have had if they were more like Matt Gaetz and less like themselves. Don't forget the liars of the lefty media who slandered us and lied to protect crooked politicians like Jack Uger and Ryan Grimm.
But Jimmy, you don't have to understand. Democracy itself is at stake. Trump is talking about.
This is democracy.
Do you know Trump said something?
This is real democracy.
Executing General Miley. I heard from a thing.
This is real democracy. This is real democracy.
And Jimmy, this is a vindication.
This is what the left has wanted the people to do. And so the power has been concentrated in the speaker's hands. And so he's breaking that up too.
Jimmy, it's no way to run a corporation.
But this is a real vindication for you, right? This is force the vote. I mean, sometimes
I can't believe the amount of vindication. It's actually stunning.
It's like
It's
you got
stunning.
vindicated yesterday.
There should be a parade for me.
I mean, you know,
honest to God,
I want to cover it up. It's embarrassing.
And
How many times you were right is embarrassing to me.
Single subject spending bills is something that real leftists want, right?
Right.
This is something real leftists want. We don't want this stuff lumped together because this is how Washington continues to be Washington, and special interests get their way. They lump these bills together. But if you separate them, now you have to make the politicians accountable for their vote. Now they can't say, well, I voted for Ukraine spending because I wanted money for the border. Or I voted for money on the border because I wanted Ukraine spending. You can't lump that stuff together and provide cover for them. This is something real leftists want.
That's a good point too, because for once, instead of the well-oiled machine, it's them being how they do to society. They don't want that being a well-oiled machine. They want that nonstop chaos, riots. In fact,
so look at the hacks, the establishment hacks, how they're reacting. So John Capehart, MSNBC host and hack of all hacks, says, "Remember, Nancy Pelosi also had a 4-seat majority during her second stint as Speaker of the House." So
the squad are weak.
Centrists are bragging that progressives never seriously considered using their leverage to extract that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
Say, no, we didn't do that.
Not only that, one of the best stock pickers in all of Congress.
So she makes the point, centrists are bragging that progressives never seriously considered using their leverage to extract a single thing from Nancy Pelosi that would materially benefit poor and working people during a pandemic when 15 million people had just lost their health insurance. That's what he's bragging about.
Norms?
He's bragging about that the Democrats didn't do this, didn't do anything to Nancy. That's what he's bragging about, how the Democrats run in lockstep unison.
Knock down the house with kindness.
Knock down the house.
She has a documentary called Knock Down the House.
Yes. So get this, what the Democrats are willing to vote for McCarthy. House Democrats state that what their priorities and demands would be in order to support a GOP House member for Speaker. You want to know what they want? First thing, money for Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was wondering when we would finally get to that, the thing I care about.
That's what they want. Yeah. This is such a clown show. And regular people, like I wanted to ask Mike, Mike McRae writes those sketches, so he understands what the game that's really being played is in Ukraine. Do regular
we need
people
money for Ukraine to fight China. What don't you get?
That's the first thing they want. So I'll read this to you. It says, Gaetz and 7 other Republicans voted to remove McCarthy as Speaker, along with 208 Democrats. Democratic Rep Hakeem Jeffries of New York, who's the Democratic leader in the House. Mm-hmm. He's what Nancy Pelosi used to be. He said that any speaker the Democrats supported would have to agree to more funding for Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's the first thing he says.
I can't think of a single more important thing in my lifetime than paying more money to Ukraine.
Solidarity.
Nothing.
Yeah.
People just like Matt Gaetz just said, but people can't afford houses. The American economy is not working for workers.
I like how they go, if we don't do this, it does affect you. I'm like, no, I know it's affecting me now. What would you doing?
Imagine if we spent all that money just on people here in America.
They just spend it on drugs.
Let's talk Matt Gaetz. So this week, all of a sudden, I think we all probably remember where we were at, where it said, McCarthy is fired. You're like, wait, what? Is this a mistake? Like, this is not possible, right? How did this, take place? And Matt Gaetz is going out to call him out. You didn't keep your promise. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. And yesterday I asked him a question at your event that you had in Miami. I said, when you were doing that, when you were pushing him, did you actually think it was going to be a historic moment where this guy was going to get fired? Or did you just think you're going to scare him to have like a, publicity, TV, media reaction, kind of sharing your thoughts? And he gave his answer. But from your perspective, what are your thoughts about what happened? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Unpack it for us.
Well, this is Matt Gaetz is doing the exact thing that I championed 2 years ago when the Democrats had a slim majority, and I wanted the progressives, meaning the squad, AOC and those people, to do what Matt Gaetz is doing to the Speaker. They ran on doing that to Nancy Pelosi, and I said, you can't give your vote to her for Speaker unless you get some concessions from her. And they refused to do that. And half half the people on the quote unquote left turned on me and said that I was doing something that was crazy. This came right from the DSA handbook. This came right from AOC's own campaign. She was like, we got to have a vote on Medicare for all. So that was my ask. My ask was, you don't vote for Nancy Pelosi unless they give you a vote for Medicare for all on the floor, which is what Democrats have been saying they wanted for 2 decades, if not longer, since Nancy Pelosi actually in 1994 said she wanted that. So I'm like, this is something everybody agrees on the left. So they wouldn't do it. Matt Gaetz is not only doing that, he's not only challenging, but he's actually asking for reforms that progressives should be cheering for. He wants to have single item bills voted on. You don't want to put school lunches in with a border and Ukraine funding into the same bill. And that's garbage. And he wants that. And he's willing to get rid of McCarthy for that. I got to tell you, it was really inspiring to listen to his speeches. And I realized that, oh, that's why they've made him into be such a monster. And now they're literally calling him a terrorist for doing that. And they're trying to make it look like somehow he's a maniac and the Republicans are out of control and chaos. That's exactly what someone's supposed to do. And Matt Gaetz, I don't think he takes PAC funding, and he raises most of his money through $200 or less donations. And that's why he's able to do this. And it's like, I don't agree with probably most of his politics, but I agree with him doing this, him getting those reforms in the House. That's what lefties should be screaming for. And it's really great what he's doing. He's made a fan out of me anyway. And I love his anti-war stance. Now, the only thing I hope he doesn't pivot and be pro-war on China, but doing this to stop the funding for Ukraine is a definite winner for him. And the American people are coming around to his point of view. So I think it's great. As a progressive and a lefty, I wish that the Democrats, the progressives, had half the nuts that he does, because he's really, it was sweet. I was just pumping my fist and cheering this guy on.
And Matt Gaetz tweeted out that he's willing to give some concessions on the motion to vacate to raise the threshold, making it harder in the future if they enact Ro Khanna's reforms. So he's shouting at a Democrat. Ro Khanna says you can't trade stocks in Congress, 12-year term limit, and no lobbyist and PAC money donations. And I'm loving it. I'm loving it. It's when we're driving in the car. Luke is, I'm in the passenger seat. Luke's sitting in the back, and he goes, Kevin McCarthy's been removed. And I was like, no. Wait, hold on. I pull up Twitter, and I'm like, no, I think they're saying they may have the votes for now, but it can still reverse. And he's like, no, he's removed. And then I see the video, and I press play, and it's like, the yeas have it, the motion to vacate. And I was like, I lost it. I'm like dead silent. And then this is history. The first speaker to be removed. And the issue is, if the Republicans made this big hubbub about 2022 and winning a majority, and once we do, we'll control the budget, we'll do these things, but Kevin McCarthy is unwilling to actually work with the people who got him that majority, and in fact is just trying to work backroom deals, particularly to get funding for Ukraine, then what's the point of voting for these individuals if in the end, look, I'm sure Matt Gaetz and I will disagree on a lot of policy positions, like Jimmy was mentioning, but if the core of his fight is reforms in Congress, then I think he's going to have 80% of the country agreeing with him if they know what's actually going on.
I'm going to ask this question, and I want you to, the question I asked last night, I want to ask you tonight, and I want you to give me a rebuttal. Gallup poll comes out, right? The Americans trust the Republicans and economy 53-39. Highest exchange, difference between the two ever, okay? They trust Republicans for military. They trust Republicans for economy. They trust Republicans for almost everything, right? Everything was them trusting Republicans. By the way, we haven't had this. If you have the chart, Rob, to pull it up.
Since when?
If you've seen this, it's not something that's normal. For the longest time, they trusted Democrats. If you look at the blue and the red, look at this exchange on what's happened. It's very high and where we are today, right? It's just a number we're not accustomed to seeing. And purple, the people that no difference, no opinions, going lower and lower and lower, which means people are having more and more opinions on what they want to do. So yesterday, there's certain people that say, Jimmy or Tim, they'll say, well, look at the Republican Party. They're in shambles. They're not united. This is why Democrats will always win, because no matter what happens, a Bernie Sanders will set aside to protect and get behind Joe Biden, and he'll get up there and try to convince the Ilhan and AOC, we got to support him because we're going to get some things done. But no, we wanted you, Bernie, and Elizabeth Warren steps aside, and Amy steps aside, and the great Pete Buttigieg steps aside, and all these guys step aside, right? And then look at the Republicans, man, they can't even get along. And then even something, Trump say, why can't these guys all get along together? So there is different messaging from different people. Open-ended question: what do you say to the people that are saying, listen, Matt kind of just broke apart the Republican Party just because of 8 people were not happy with McCarthy?
Maybe it is that right now what Matt Gaetz has done will create the image of disunity and scare the people who finally turned around. But I'll tell you what I actually think. I think the reason you're seeing the Republican Party go up is because of Matt Gaetz. That's right. Because there have been, for the longest time, for my entire life, Congress has been a waste of time. And I didn't even vote. I voted for Obama. I regretted it because he blew up a bunch of kids. And then you get 2012 and 2016. I didn't vote for anybody. 2020, I turned around. I say, okay, maybe I want to start supporting some of these guys. Gallup's latest poll, 82% disapproval in Congress. And Thomas Massie, I think he's a good guy, but he stands up there and gives this impassioned speech about how if we vote to remove McCarthy, this institution will fail. I bust out laughing. I'm like, you think 82% disapproval is an institution we want to preserve? I'm wondering if the reason people are now actually saying I trust Republicans more is because they're hearing something that actually aligns more so with what they're looking for. At the very least, if it is Matt Gaetz saying, I want reforms and no more politics as usual, no more revolving door BS, no more lobbyist money, yeah, okay, I'm behind Republicans for that, if that's what it is. That being said, Kevin McCarthy actually creates problems, in my opinion, for someone who wants to support the Republican Party, because as soon as they get their majority, what does he do? He starts playing politics as usual once again. The only thing keeping me interested is Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. This idea that somehow you're supposed to have party unity, and that AOC was bragging about it. That the Democrats are running like a well-oiled machine. Well, you're not supposed to. You were sent there to oppose the establishment inside the Democratic Party, and of course they're acting like that wasn't what they were sent to do there, but it is what they're sent to do, which is why her approval ratings are in the shitter too. So they're not. This is exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And the only people who are anti-war are people on the right in the Republican Party. And as a lefty, I got nowhere to go. It's just like I got. So it's again, just to reiterate, it's great what Matt Gaetz is doing. So that's why he's going to be slimed and smeared in the corporate press up and down. He's going to be called everything from a pedophile to a terrorist to a white supremacist. Yep. That's the game. And so we got to be aware of it. And I stand in solidarity with his reforms in Congress. And I think most of the American people, they want to get PAC money out of there. They want to have single issue voting. They want to have more power to the members and less power to the speaker. And they want to stop the funding of Ukraine. And so it doesn't matter if it's Nancy Pelosi or Kevin McCarthy. They're going to get that funding for Ukraine. They're going to get the bidding done of the donor class. And so that's what Matt Gaetz is standing up to. And I thought that the lefties would stand up to it. Bernie Sanders and the squad. Of course, they didn't. In fact, they all voted for the largest upward transfer of wealth in human history. They all voted for funding this Ukraine war instead of funding the United States. They rolled over completely to be in the establishment, and that's what the Democratic Party is, in lockstep with the corporate media, in lockstep with the donor class and the establishment. And I think people maybe are waking up to it, and that's why those numbers are happening like that. So I really can't say more about. I always thought this was going to happen from a lefty, and it's coming from Matt Gaetz.
By the way, as a lefty yourself, what is it making you think about your next vote? Because you have a voice. Your show, people listen to what you have to say, and you're very passionate, and you break things down, and you're a true believer. You come across as a guy that's like, listen, I'm a regular guy that just got a lot of opinions, right, and here's what I'm going through. What do you think? What are you grappling with yourself for your vote in 2024?
Well, I was thought I was going to support Cornel West, but I'm not going to support. I can't see that happening now. He's in bed with the same establishment people. He's got Peter Dow, who's a cancer on the left, in charge of his campaign, which is why he's flailing. And he just left the Green Party, so he's not going to get ballot access. So he's not really running for president. And that was clear to me when he came on my show. He didn't ask for my vote. He didn't ask for the votes of the people who watch my show. In fact, he looked like he just came on to pick a fight with me. And he can't stop saying that Joe Biden is the lesser of two evils with Donald Trump. So if you say that, you're undermining your own campaign, which led me to believe he's not really running. So I'm looking forward to Bobby Kennedy declaring his independent run, because a lot of the stuff he says is really important to me, like his stance on COVID, lockdowns, authoritarianism, and free speech. And he says if you don't have free speech, you don't have democracy.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.